was another player whose name was not Kyrie Irving, we would all be saying, what a courageous stand this guy is taking
Exactly. And Kyrie
by
dug that hole for
sacrificing
himself.
it.
I'm not going to
Right.
deny that. Kyrie dug his own hole, but this is one thing he should not be criticized for. He
You're
gets
probably
constantly
right. I mean, if he was not him, if it was LeBron saying this, everyone would be saying, "Wow, what a courageous guy. How much integrity does it take to risk sacrificing your paycheck to protest? This is, similar to Muhammad Ali and John Carlos and those guys. Like, this is awesome." And I think you're right. His reputation is a huge part of this. If it wasn't him, this message would be a lot better received. I think you're absolutely right.
and that's just another reason like Kyrie Irving just doesn't care what people think of him. He's fighting for people that have been oppressed their whole lives. Look, as much as if you and I have not experienced it personally, but systematic racism is there. It's like I'm just looking back on like my life and my experiences, and I've just been blind to it. It's there. You and I may not be racist, but we've been in situations where there's racism going on, and we just think that it's the norm, and that's the part that's not okay. So the biggest question here is, does the NBA resume play do any harm to that Black Lives Matter movement? Because I know that it's happened time and time again with the Eric Gardners and the Breonna Taylors and the Trayvon Martins. But I think now is the time. I don't think we're ever going to have a shot at change better than this. As much as I miss basketball, I'm willing to not have the rest of the season if it means that real change takes place. And I've
Yeah,
been
it's a great
itching to
point.
watch basketball. But I'm not going to sit here and bash Kyrie Irving for speaking out and being the outcast, if you will.
Well, I
You
mean,
know,
I
his
think at the end of the day, there's two things at play here. One is that Kyrie Irving has had a history of being a little bit of an antagonist, a guy who sort of plays devil's advocate for the sake of kind of being contrarian, and that's just kind of his MO. He's someone who kind of likes to. I mean, he wants to shake up the status quo, and I respect that. But he's also someone who can often do that without an end goal in mind. And I do think it's fair to say here that this is different. I think if it wasn't for the fact that it's Kyrie Irving, and frankly, if it wasn't for the fact that he's potentially offering the option of not playing basketball, which is the other part of this. I mean, I think the other part of this is if you look at the personalities that are criticizing Kyrie Irving, the reality is none of them want the NBA season not to come back. They all need it to come back because it is their job to cover sports. Stephen A. Smith coming out and criticizing Kyrie Irving, that is a selfish take. He does not want basketball to get delayed because that is his livelihood. That is his job. He has nothing to do if there are no sports. He sits and just has to make up new takes, which
right.
apparently
We
he's
wouldn't
very
have
good
a
at.
podcast without the NBA. But you know what? The NBA has been off since March, and I know with me having Corona and us taking some time off due to the lack of content, we still had a 6-week recap of The Last Dance. This is our 8th show in 14 weeks, so we've still covered. Now we don't get paid for this, but we've still covered more than half the time that the league's been away. We're doing all right. There's so much evergreen content. I know it's being churned through like crazy right now, and we all miss basketball, but this is bigger than basketball. This is people's livelihoods. These are people that have been oppressed their whole lives. And the reason why I appreciate this so much is no one in the NBA is speaking out against law enforcement, right? This is not about, the cops and George Floyd. This is about preventing another George Floyd incident. This is preventing another innocent person of color from dying when they shouldn't have.
It's about
Okay, if
promoting
Kyrie, right,
anti-racism.
you're right. If Kyrie came out and said, "Well, I hate cops," I wouldn't be sitting here defending him. I have so many close friends. I said this on last week's show that I love that are police officers. So the fact that they're peacefully just trying to help people of color, how could you not get behind that? If anything, this should enhance Kyrie's reputation. He's going to come back next season and say the world is shaped like a trapezoid, and then everyone's going to laugh at him again. But you know what? Right now, he's got a point, and he's making it.
What was your options for shapes there? You went with trapezoid. Did you have rectangle? What was option
Almost
two?
rhombus.
Rhombus. Oh, I like the rhombus. The rhombus is the diamond, right? Rhombus is diamond,
I
but
do
it's like the
not
official name.
remember. We're
I think
supposed to
it
be
is.
fighting right now.
I think the rhombus is the diamond. I'm always terrible at the actual shape names. But you're absolutely right. You make a great point. And the reality here is, just to kind of, I think,
It's a
tie a
diamond.
bow on this, is that I think what's going to end up happening is probably positive. I think more likely than not, what this is going to do is help shift the perspective to focus on how to do an effective protest. And I am very, very confident in the leadership of Adam Silver. We have just watched basically multiple commissioners just poop the bed, more or less. I mean, Rob Manfred is soiling himself as we speak. I mean, what is going on in baseball is just an embarrassment. What they're doing, his complete inability to put out any meaningful statement or message, to do anything. I mean, it is shocking. But we can talk about that on another podcast. Meanwhile, Roger Goodell is having to clean up a mess that he made for years of basically allowing Colin Kaepernick to get blackballed from the league. I mean, it was the worst kept secret in the world that they were blackballing Colin Kaepernick, and now he has to try and backtrack. It has gotten so bad that there is a trending Twitter topic about Gary Bettman, Jason. Gary Bettman is not a historically good sports commissioner. That's trending. Meanwhile, Adam Silver is just keeping the boat is just sailing on. And I'm very confident that what's going to happen out of here is he's going to take all of these concerns, and what he's going to do is actually enable the NBA to look good. And the reason I say that is the NBA is already the most socially progressive league, already the league that markets its players the best of anyone in North American sports. I mean, you can argue that the Premier League and the European football leagues do an excellent job there, but they market their players well. And Adam Silver's done a great job with the collective bargaining agreements and keeping competitive balance in a league that is by nature top heavy. And yet they have fewer complaints than the MLB, which theoretically should be much easier to get competitive balance in. So, with all that said, I think he's going to shepherd the league towards a place where those protests become part of the NBA message. It's a place where they can stay on brand, but also on message and say, this is something we support. Because at the end of the day, most Americans still support having increased social justice. There is some divisiveness over aspects of this, absolutely. But this is a chance for the NBA to unify our country and to create a message that is especially prevalent for many of the viewers of the NBA. There is a large audience of people out there who want to watch basketball and who want to see social justice. And tying those messages in together is only going to strengthen the base of the NBA. And I think this is going to be an opportunity for Silver to once again show his leadership bona fides and lead the league to an even better place and inspire even more people to get behind the NBA, just as other leagues are absolutely embarrassing themselves with the way that they're trying to do damage control.
Yeah, that was very well said, Ben. Look, Adam Silver has solidified himself as the best commissioner in all American sports years ago with the way he handled the Donald Sterling situation, right? But what does that come back to? Racism. Okay, what Donald Sterling was running as owner of the Clippers was systematic racism. He was from the old era of segregation, and he just never thought he'd change his views. If you were so damn racist back then, why purchase an NBA team where the majority of the sports players are people of color? So when Silver stepped in and handled it with grace, with poise, he earned the respect of a lot of the top players in the NBA. So I think he's hearing a guy like Kyrie Irving. He's hearing a guy like Avery Bradley, and he deserves all the props in the world. I know this isn't easy. You know, you can't sit here with me and say he's going to find a way to navigate this overnight. That's unrealistic. But some of the things that Avery Bradley said to NBC Sports was, look, and you mentioned this before with the BLM patches, and I respect what you're saying, but he said straight up, we don't need to say more. We need to find a way to achieve more. Protesting during the anthem or wearing T-shirts, sure, that's great, but we need to see real actions being put in the works. And he also said, I agree the Orlando restart will give players checks to contribute back into the communities, but how much of that bubble check are players actually able to contribute? Why is all the responsibility being put on the players? Don't put all the weight on your player to take care of the issue. So
1,000%.
And Avery Bradley, his team, Kyrie Irving, he said it a lot better than Kyrie did. He's not sitting here suggesting that he's going to start a new league, but that's what this coalition that Irving started is fighting for. Avery Bradley just put it more eloquently, and that circles back to Silver, and I have no doubt that he will find a way to make this all work. But
1,000%.
As a basketball podcast host, I will say that the sport is taking a backseat. I'm going to be very excited once it does come back next month, but they need to figure out a way. So it's good that this conversation's happening now, right? It's June 16th. They've been in talks for 5-6 days now. So let them figure it out. You know, there's still a month. I mean, I think players are reporting back to their respective organizations this coming weekend. Training camps are starting. The conversations will continue. 100%.
And I think the other piece here that you mentioned, you alluded to, and I just want to give it a little bit more coverage here, is what Bradley has pivoted to. And I think it's crucial because you mentioned, I mean, at the end of the day, give Kyrie credit, regardless of whether you have issue with his message. He brought up a message that is now allowing a discussion to take place that is now including things like improving hiring practices so that there are more African Americans and people of color in front offices and the head coaching ranks of the NBA. So the league's management better reflects the composition of players, and so that black-owned businesses and arena vendors are coming from communities of color, and that the organizations, as you alluded to, are also matching contributions and making their own contributions to organizations that support people of color, that support social justice, that support anti-racist policies, that support police reform, that support all of these things that players are protesting. And ultimately, that's the legacy potentially of what Kyrie Irving is doing. And so in that sense, I'm with you because he's kind of lit the match that could get this to go. And I do think this is one of those things that it's just a no-brainer. You know, if you're a sports league, get behind this stuff. Who could possibly criticize the NBA for saying, we're going to invest more in communities of color? We're going to try and make sure that our hiring practices are better and that we hire more diverse candidates. If you're critical of that, then you don't belong in the viewership of the NBA. I think at some point the NBA has to understand that you don't want those people as part of the viewership. If you're not in support of equality, of supporting diverse hiring practices and reform for social justice in our society, we don't want you. You don't need to be part of this community. Go find another community. Maybe, I mean, I think even NASCAR, they're cleaning up their side. They're saying no more Confederate flags. You're not going to have many places to go. So I think getting ahead of this, getting ahead of the wave here by the NBA could be huge. And I think I have full confidence that Adam Silver is going to do just that and take the NBA to be, again, at the head of the pack and really ahead of the curve in terms of these issues and getting the league on track for what's coming.
Well, and that's all well and good. Before we wrap up, though, can we talk about LeBron for a minute? Because, Look, LeBron has been all over social media. He's a huge advocate for the Black Lives Matter movement. He's been saying it for years. He is one of the biggest advocates for change because he has one of the biggest platforms. He's one of the most famous people on the planet. Mm-hmm. And I can't sit here and say, well, LeBron hasn't left his house, right? We don't know what he's done, but he hasn't been on record of being at the protests with the Westbrooks and the Dame Dollas and the Clays and the Stephs and the Kyrie Irvings. So getting back to basketball for a second, right? He's 35 years old, and the Lakers are title favorites. So do you think that part of his reason for saying, now we got to go play is his time's running out, and he really cares about his legacy and knowing that this might be his last best shot at a fourth ring? So why else would he oppose some of his own teammates on these stances, right?
Absolutely. Yes, he wants to win another ring. He watched The Last Dance. He knows he's not there yet. He's not at Michael Jordan's level.
But that shouldn't be a reason to not fight this. He's of the opinion that 100%. He can do both at the
selfish,
same time.
But
because of...
Okay, but let's also take the Kyrie Irving side of this and say, like, Kyrie Irving is also not having to sacrifice that. Like, he doesn't have to worry about that. So I'm going to say it cuts both ways in this respect. As much as LeBron is selfishly like, I want to play more so I get a chance at another chip, for Kyrie, he doesn't have to worry about any of those questions because he's not going anyway. So this is part of my issue with him being the messenger. But you're absolutely right. Of course, LeBron is selfishly wanting to
Some
play
people
more.
are gonna take issue with that.
With LeBron, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean,